Hello, everyone. The meeting is now being recorded. Commissioner McCosh, would you like to begin with the open meeting statement?
Sure. Go ahead, Andrea.
My apologies. I thought I had it up. I had the wrong thing up. So that is on me. My apologies.
It's in the advisory board work stream.
Yep, I had the wrong thing open. Wrong work stream, but I'm pulling it up. The open meeting law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made by Boston City TV, a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications, and is being broadcast on Xfinity Channel 24, RCN Channel 13, and FiOS Channel 962. With that, I hand it off to the chair.
Thank you, Andrea. My name is Olivia Richard. I am the chair of the Disability Commission Advisory Board, and I call the August meeting of the board to order. Let's begin with introductions. I am from Brighton, so let's move it to Carl.
Hi, this is Carl from Boston, and I'm an advisory member.
Ducia?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ducia Lebowski, Ducia for short. Secretary and the board member, and I'm in Boston, specifically in Michigan. Thank you.
Jerry?
Yes, my name is Jerry Boyd. I live in West Roxbury, and I'm an advisory board member.
Wesley?
Hello, everyone. I'm Wes, and I think I'm spotlighted potentially because I am using sign language interpreters for this meeting. And I am an advisory board member, and I live in the North End. Thank you.
Paul?
Hi, my name's Paul Karen. I live in the West End, and I'm an advisory board member also.
Elizabeth?
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Dean Flower. I'm vice chair of the advisory board, and I live in Back Bay.
Yardley?
Well, sorry, let me repeat that. I was muted. Hello, everyone. My name is Yardley Sanchez. I live in Dorchester, and I am an advisory board member.
Awesome. Alice?
And hello, my name is Alice, and I live in the South End, and I'm an advisory board member.
Have I forgotten anyone? Is anyone on who's not listed? Okay. We've done introductions. Let's move to approval of the July minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the July minute.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. We need to move on to discussion of the advocacy letters while we have quorum. So do I hear a motion to approve the 2 letters?
I make a motion to approve the 2 letters.
Second?
And
Okay,
Ms.
Jerry.
West, can we just clarify what those 2 letters are, please?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry. They are the introduction letter for Mayor Janey from us and the letter to Charlie Baker about the vaccine rollout.
This is a bit,
Thank you.
this might be a point of order question. If I just wanted to raise a discussion point or clarification, do I do that after the motion?
Oh, you can do it now, just that point
Yeah.
of order. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay, I will point of order. Naturally, we absolutely need to and want to get this vaccine letter out. At the time it was drafted and revised, we did not yet know with certainty that not only people who are immunocompromised, but as of today, all people will be eligible and, whatever recommended to get the 3rd dose vaccine. We absolutely want to avoid the, lack of prioritization of the last situation. So I just wanted to have mentioned that as a new development about it. And so I just didn't know how the board wanted to handle that. As I said, it's not at all to protract the letter any further, but I didn't know if that sentence could just be amended on the fly, or how that, what are the logistics of just the fact that we did not yet have that. It will have, when it's sent, it will have the current date, but not reflect the current reality.
This is Wes. If I could, I just would like to add that I'm in favor of what Elizabeth just mentioned, in that we should add 1 sentence, including forward thinking on our part, because we are not sure of what it will look like after we send that letter. So if we could add some language in there about forward thinking.
I just really like to get the letter out. I mean, I think it's pretty comprehensive right now.
But just
Andrea,
1 sentence, this is Wes, just to add that 1 sentence to make sure that we're forward thinking of any gaps in the future or anything.
To avoid
so that they can understand that they're ready for any situation that may come about, like Elizabeth said.
This is,
1 sentence.
this is Carl. Can I redo the amendment to say that we want the letter to go out, but we'll leave it up to Commissioner McCosh and her staff to add that sentence so that it doesn't have to go to another vote, and we can simply get the letter out, because the letter, due to many factors, has been sitting around for many months. So can we leave it up to the disability office to add and then send it out if we vote on it today with future amendments?
This is Wes. Yeah, that's fine. I agree with that. That does make sense.
And I agree with, we just don't want to look like, of all people, that we're not on top of the advocacy. So I'm in total favor of that.
This is Jerry as well. Yeah, as long as that's doable from the commissioner's office standpoint, that they can make necessary changes without it having to go to another vote, because again, this is as Carol's pointed out and Olivia's pointed out, this has been very many months delay, and I wouldn't want the letter to have any more delay, although I think the points brought up have been very good, and definitely it's worthy of another sentence or two, you know, but I don't want to cause any more delay than there has to be, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just think this news we learned today was a game changer, because even frankly, once again, like the original CDC list, certain conditions still weren't going to qualify as immunocompromised. But I think we need to have it with what Wes had said and what I had said, just a little bit of language about both forward-looking and prioritization, and particularly with the flexibility that they, you know, later of going, whether it's to people's homes or local, you know, whatever works for people who have disabilities, that now that once again, otherwise it's going to be you know, Darwin survival of the fittest, who's got nimble fingers or quick connections to get to the front of the line.
So this is
Okay.
Carl. I would like to restate my, what do you call it?
Motion.
Motion, thank you. I can only think of one motion I love to make at the end of the meeting. But anyway, I would like to restate my motion to say that I would like to do approval of the letter on vaccination, given the authority to the disability office to make the changes necessary, but then to have them send it out once they complete the letter.
Second?
I second again, Jerry. This is Jerry.
Okay. Let's discussion, please. Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that letter passes. The welcome to Mayor Janey letter. Do I have a motion to approve the letter?
I just have a question prior to making a motion. The copy of the letter that was sent out in the most recent materials has an April date on it. Obviously, we want to make sure that it's a current letter. Correct?
My apologies for not updating the date, but that is the most recent copy per the requested edits at the June meeting to include the City Hall Plaza in the priorities. So that is the most recent copy. Thank you for clarifying. My apologies that I did not change the date at the top in the header. We will edit that with today's date, assuming the vote passes.
Great. So I will make a motion to approve the letter to Mayor Janey.
Second?
I second.
Discussion? All right, let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, and any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. The letter passes. So I can't wait to receive those, sign them, and send them out. Now, do I, Commissioner, do I print those out, physically sign them, and drop them off at City Hall?
Do you have an electronic signature?
Yes.
If you send that to us, we can print them out, put that on it,
Okay.
and mail them.
Okay.
And
cool.
then I had one other letter that I had sent out to the board. I just wanted to bring up while we have a quorum. You may remember John Kelly, a former board member, had reached out about a letter for physician-assisted suicide, opposing physician-assisted suicide. And I believe John's on the call to talk about the letter. He didn't get to call for a vote last month because we had technical difficulties. So John, do you want to jump on now?
Sure. Thank you very much, Kristen, and thank you to the board for hearing me last meeting. If you've seen the letter, I'm requesting that the board approve the updated letter with change of dates and bills. The bills are substantially the same, and the arguments in the letter are the same. The reasons that people use the program where it's legal all have to do with internalized ableism and systemic ableism, in that there's no right to home care. Nursing homes are so terrible. There's the problem of mistaken diagnosis. Some people on this call may have been misdiagnosed or even told they were terminal. And I really appreciate the effort to protect the dignity of living with a disability rather than being the message of better dead than disabled. Thank you for considering.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve sending out the letter for supporting Second Thought's position on this?
I make a motion to send the letter out regarding assisted suicide.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I think the motion carries.
So Olivia, we'll add your name to that one too, and we can get those out this week.
Okay, I'll email you my signature tonight.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. Okay, let's move on to our project presentation on barriers and supports for students with disabilities in architecture education. Take it away, Emily Gomez.
Hello. Okay, I'm just gonna pull up my slides real quick. Oh, okay. Is there any way that I could share my slides, or is it already up? Okay.
Yes, go right ahead. Sorry.
That's good. Okay. So I'm gonna start off. Can you see the slides on the screen? Sorry, I just like went into presenter. Let's see, share screen.
Not yet.
Okay. Let's see. Is it on there now?
There you go. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for letting me present the results of my research project tonight. For those who I have not met yet, my name is Emily Gomez. I just graduated in May with a degree in occupational therapy. And this project was completed during my doctoral experience last spring with the Commission on Persons with Disabilities. So the project is titled Utilizing an Occupational Therapy Model to Identify the Barriers and Supports Impacting Students with Disabilities in Architecture Education. The project was completed with my mentors, Diane Smith, Patricia Mendes, and the individuals at the Boston's Mayor's Commission for Persons with Disabilities. So a little bit of background information before I get into the methods. According to a study released by the CDC, 25% of the American population has a disability, impacting 1 in 4 Americans. Although this is a significant percentage of the US population, there is currently limited to no research on individuals with disabilities in the architecture profession. With the US population diversifying at a rapid pace, we need to meet the needs of this diverse population. We need architects who bring their unique perspectives, experiences, and backgrounds to their designs. Diversifying the profession and including individuals with disabilities in this profession will ensure that architecture is supportive of the population it serves. It will also guarantee elements of accessibility are initial thought rather than afterthought. Employing and including individuals with disabilities is vital. Research shows that hiring people with disabilities can improve a company's profitability, competitive advantages, and create an inclusive environment for all employees. So the physical environment substantially impacts a person's quality of life, their social interactions, and their participation in valuable occupation. An accessible environment promotes optimal functioning, health, and well-being. Similar to architects, occupational therapists are highly concerned with the effects of the built environment. Occupational therapists, or OTs, are trained to investigate diverse factors impacting a person's participation. OTs focus on increasing participation in desirable occupations, and these occupations could be anything, just leisure activities, activities of daily living, and whatever else a person's passionate about. And sometimes to improve participation, OTs modify the environment to better suit the individual. Also, increasing participation in formal education is a distinct practice area for occupational therapists. To identify the barriers impacting students with disabilities in architecture education, this project uses an OT model called the PEO model, and that just stands for person, environment, and occupation. And this model examines all three of those factors and improves their interaction to improve a person's participation. As previously stated, both professions are impacted by the built environment. In addition to identifying the barriers and supports impacting students with disabilities in architecture, this project aims to highlight the need for interprofessional collaboration between OTs and architects, and the need to develop a better education on universal design and to identify emerging occupational therapy practice areas. So for this research study, 2 surveys were distributed, and the first survey was sent to current students and alumni with disabilities, and the second survey was given to disability support staff at various architecture schools in Boston. From the 8 surveys distributed, 8 were returned. 7 were from students and alumni, 1 was a current student, and 6 were alumni. And the last survey was from a disability support staff at architecture school in Boston. From the 8 responses, 8 themes were identified. From the 8 themes identified, 4 were considered barriers, 3 were considered supports, and the last theme was recommendations and advice for future students. The first theme identified was the inaccessibility of the physical environment. 3 participants attributed this to a barrier impacting the quality of their overall education. A disability support staff member shared the following: the campus is complying with the law. I wouldn't say it's inclusive or physically accessible in the most dignified and usable way. Curricular and physical access in terms of usability is usually an afterthought. Things that are technically accessible are not always that functional / usable for the user, and the user is often the last person asked. The second theme identified is the lack of awareness and training provided to faculty, staff, and teaching assistants. Several participants identified the lack of education on disability as a barrier to their education. The third theme identified is poor implementation of accommodations. All participants shared they received accommodations. However, several reported a lack of advertisement, implementation, and integration of these accommodations as a barrier. The last barrier identified was the culture surrounding architecture programs. 2 participants highlighted the severe and potentially damaging expectations placed on students within this profession. 1 participant shared, the hazing mentality runs deep in almost every studio course. The mentality is harmful not only for those with disabilities, but to all students. It also reinforces professors' perception of what working hard actually looks like. From the data collected, 3 supports were also identified. The first support was being surrounded by a supportive community of professors, faculty, staff, classmates, and coworkers. Participants highlighted the benefits of having professors who are open to learning and providing accommodations. Participants also shared the support they received from classmates who were willing to take and share their class notes. The second support identified was the development of technology and legislation. 3 participants attributed this as a support to their overall education. One participant shared, "I discovered a text-to-speech app that allows me to lead meetings again and speak at conferences. It's funny that since losing the ability to actually speak, I'm invited to speak at events and conferences to a wide variety of audiences." The last support identified was accommodations and disability support services. Although some participants identified this as a barrier, a majority of the participants considered this as a support to their experience. Accommodations included exam modifications, ASL interpreters, talking technology, adaptive equipment, and note-taking. The last theme identified from the research was recommendations and advice for future students. Participants highlighted the need for future students to self-advocate and utilize the available accommodations. One participant shared her advice stating, "I highly encourage people with disabilities to enter the field of architecture, as we are one of the demographics directly affected by the built environment. Accessibility is directly correlated with our independence. We have a unique perspective that embraces both creativity and practicality and understand that accessibility can and should be beautiful." From the results, a couple of potential solutions were identified. The solutions highlight the need for additional training for faculty and staff. It was also noted that the need to increase the focus and education on universal design and for alterations to be made to the physical and attitudinal environment of these programs. It was also made evident that students with disabilities need to be represented and included within the profession, as it impacts such a huge population. By identifying the barriers and supports, further research is demanded to develop specific strategies to alleviate the barriers impacting students. So from an OT's perspective, this implements our profession in a lot of different ways. Occupational therapies have a lot of knowledge on various disabilities, environmental modifications, adaptive equipment, universal design, and the human lifespan. And having this information will ensure that architecture is truly accessible for the population it will serve. The project additionally highlights the need for further interprofessional collaboration between architects and OTs. OT's knowledge paired with architects will ensure elements of design are truly accessible. Lastly, this project highlighted an emerging practice areas for OTs. OTs can work as consultants on design projects, provide education on disabilities, home modifications, and adaptive equipment to architectures students, and can also work as co-designers. Working together, these professions will diminish environmental barriers to ensure all individuals are able to successfully participate in their valuable occupations. So I would like to thank the following individuals. Without their support, this project would not be possible. Here's a list, but a huge thank you to all these individuals. And if anybody would like a reference list or find out any more information, here's my email address on the top. I'd be happy to send that along. And now I'll open up to questions. Thank you so much for listening to my research.
All right, we'll start with Ducia. You had a question?
Yes, thank you, Olivia. Hi, this is Lucian. I have a question about the first slide that you showed. I'm not sure, maybe it was a formatting issue, I know. I saw it was from 2018, and I saw the word core, just like that. I was wondering if that's a title of the personal read the slide or what is?
Lucia, we're having some trouble hearing you. You're breaking up a bit.
The board was, sorry. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's coming in and out, Ducia, but I think
Were you able to hear me? I'm sorry.
that's okay. I think hopefully kind of heard it lagged. If you were talking about the Okaro,
I'm asking. Oh, oops. Can you hear me now?
a little bit.
Yeah, I'll just type.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Mhm. Yes, exactly.
So it sounds like Ducey is going to type her question in the chat, if I understood correctly, because the lag is pretty significant. I don't know, maybe give a thumbs up if I understood correctly, Ducia. So just to clarify for everyone.
Okay. Yeah, so in the first slide, I think it was, let me just check real quick. It was Okoro 2018. So that's just I cited where the source was from. So it was a study published by the CDC, but I think that was the original writer who found out that statistic. So that was just that. Thank you. Any additional questions?
I have one. I'm the person, it's Elizabeth. I have one, but my name isn't written correctly.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Olivia, is it okay if I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the presentation and for your work. I had a question. In the architectural schools, I don't know if, I'm curious about the current curriculum itself. One, does it include some kind of an innovative project or something that they're supposed to create? I'm just trying to think of even before, it's certainly a number of your points make sense about not only identifying barriers, but the importance of having both students and alums and professors, people with lived experience. But in the curriculum now, is there, to the extent you can generalize, or were there individual schools or programs that were better than others as far as, do they have any exposure, or is there some kind of project, intercollaborative project that where there's an expectation of inclusiveness?
Yeah. Yes, thank you for your question. So from a lot of the literature that I read and like research papers, they incorporated classes on disabilities. They didn't have a lot of user experiences. Now I think that's more common, where they're trying to get the students to go out on trips and communicate more with disabilities and trying to get some more collaboration. But and that's pretty new. I would say within the last 5 years, like schools have started taking that initiative, and they're trying to do more projects and stuff like that. But in the past, I think it was just basically a course on disability, and every school is different. But from what I read, it wasn't that significant, and it wasn't a lot of communications with people with disabilities. It was more of just verbal didactic work. But I'm pretty sure hopefully now schools are starting to implement that, but not a lot of research on that yet. I hope that answers most of the question.
Yeah, no, and that has been the problem, that the lack of lived experience or a certain kind of tokenism,
Yeah.
you know, where there isn't anything thorough. And now, you know, with the events of last year and the discussions also about race and inequality, that certainly in architecture, even the element of inclusiveness beyond accessibility, I know has come up, but certainly I think these points are important, and also with your own field, with OT, the intersection. So
Yeah.
thank you.
No problem. I know in Australia, they have programs where OTs and architects and people with a lived experience work together collaboratively, and that has shown good results. I think now it's just trying to get that established in schools here and trying to get more students with disabilities in architecture and trying to have a lot of interprofessional collaboration. So it's there's a couple of eyes getting done, helping with the project to make sure it's truly accessible for everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Olivia, this is Jerry. I had a question.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Kind of,
Question two.
kind of piggybacking on that. And thank you again for your research and wanting to delve into this topic, Emily. But so from your research and from your just surveying different architectural curricula around, there isn't a lot being taught around universal design. I'm a little surprised about that. I would think that's become more, the norm lately. It's disappointing to hear, at least from your research, that it hasn't.
Yeah. Recently, I hope it's getting more integrated. I know with the research results, a lot of people said they didn't have it, but also I had a student who's a current student, and she shared that it's not really taught as much as it should be, and that some of her classes kind of glance over it and they mention it, but it's not really something that's dug into their curriculum and something that's mentioned as a priority. So it was just interesting to see that. Like, I thought it would be getting better, but this student shared her opinion and how she feels about how universal design hasn't been fully implemented into programs yet.
Wesley?
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for your presentation, Emily. I have two questions for you. First of all, when you mentioned the small survey, you said those basically 8 or 9 people. So those 8 or 9 people, did they have some kind of disability, or were they physically disabled? Do you have information about what sort of disability they had?
Yes. So all participants self-identified as having a disability. Some disclosed their disability, and I think there was a couple of wide range. A lot of the alumni who returned their surveys shared their disability, but in just because they self-identified, I tried not to, or if they didn't openly share, I didn't ask. So I know some identified as having physical disabilities and intellectual or learning disabilities, but that was the extent I have.
Okay, great. So I was just curious. So my second question then is, in your presentation, you talked a lot about physical barriers of architectural design. And I know that you talked about that being related to the work of occupational therapists. And I'm wondering, there's a lot of information about
Sensory.
There's sort of sensory, visual, auditory, etc. I'm just asking because there are deaf people. I've got deaf friends who who are architects, and they do a lot of work on open space design that's visually accessible for deaf people and hard of hearing people. And so I think that's something where that really should be something that is considered to be included in architectural programs and projects, because it's not just the physical disability barriers and supports that are available in an environment, but it's also just the visual sight lines that are designed in a space that need to be considered.
Yes, I definitely agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that's a great thing to add. And I hope that this project kind of sheds more light, or that this project could be enhanced to kind of show that and take those factors into consideration, because I do think it's important to consider more than just the physical disabilities. So thank you for that, Wesley.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Olivia, is it possible to have a public input here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, this is David Vieira from Hyde Park, and I just want to point out that the presenter said her email was at the top of the screen, but for those of us who are on the phone or are visually impaired, we cannot see that. So would you please verbally give that information?
Yes, definitely. Here, I could give it, I'll give it now. It's Gomez, Gomez, and then M, it's EM, sorry, Gomez, EM, and it's 2020@gmail.com.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry about that. My apologies.
On a related note, apologies that we were a little bit late getting all of the accessibility tech worked out, and then I didn't announce it. So this seems like a good time for me to point out that if you would like to enable CART or closed captioning, we do have a live transcript is the button at the bottom. It is being produced by a human CART provider, not the AI that Zoom provides. We also do have two ASL interpreters who you can pin. If you need permissions to be able to pin both of them, please send me a message in the chat and I can provide that for you. So sorry to interrupt, and also sorry this is an hour into the meeting, but thank you all.
Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, thank you all so much for listening to my research presentation. It was a pleasure. So thank you. Have a good evening.
All right. Let's move on to the chair's report. I have two things. Local elections are coming up. If you haven't gotten lots of campaign mail and lots of visits and whatnot by all of the local eligible candidates, then it'll be coming very soon, because the election, the preliminary election, is on September 14th. They're running for seats for city council, mayor. I think those are the big two. Yeah. And just a reminder that the deadline to register to vote in the preliminary election is August 25th at 8 p.m. If you need any more assistance with that, you can go to boston.gov/election or 617-635-8683 is their phone number. The second thing is evictions are on the mind of a lot of people. Even though there's the CDC moratorium, people are getting into deeper and deeper arrears. Landlords cannot actually physically remove you without a court order. Let's get that out there. There is an office in Boston that can help you called the Office of Housing Stability. Whether you live in public housing, private housing, or have a Section 8 voucher, talk to them if you get a notice to quit, or if your landlord presses you on leaving. You can go to boston.gov/housing-stability. You can email ohsintake@boston.gov. And if you've got a really pressing, urgent matter, like you need emergency shelter, that type of thing, you can call 617-635-4200. They've now established a special fund for BHA tenants who were not eligible for the rental relief fund. So that, putting that out there, contact them if you're in trouble or if you need help. We want you to keep a roof over your head, especially for folks with disabilities who are more susceptible and more more likely to be evicted. And that's what I have. Commissioner, would you like to do your report?
Sure, thanks, Olivia. Andrea's going to share some slides I put together for my report. Give us 1 second. Okay, So my report for August 18th, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so to start off with, we had our 11th annual ADA Day celebration 2 weeks ago at Copley Square Park and virtually. It was a great success, especially for the first time gathering during COVID. We had almost 200 people join us live and virtually. Mayor Janey spoke and gave remarks. I wanted to say I saw a few of you there, so thanks for coming out. And then when the mayor spoke, she made 3 major announcements, which I wanted to talk about below. So they were all related to communications access. So first, I wanted to let you all know that the Office of Language and Communication Access ordinance was passed at today's City Council meeting. So what this does is it establishes a standalone Office of Access and Communication for Languages. That means that they assist city departments who need to get ASL or CART. They have funding. Every city department has funding for language and communication access projects. They're translating all of the city's vital documents into 12 languages. And it's a great resource for all city staff. So we're really excited about that. The second announcement is that Councilor Flynn today at the City Council hearing called, at the City Council meeting today, Councilor Flynn called for a hearing on requiring closed captions to be enabled on public facing TVs. And I know Wes has been a big advocate of this. So I wanted to thank Wes for pushing us to get this done. So now that the hearing was called for, it will be assigned to a committee, and then the committee will schedule a date to have the hearing. And I'm sure it will still be virtual, but we will spread the word widely to the disability community and to the business community once the hearing is scheduled. We will be sure to have ASL on the call and also CART. So more to come on that, but really exciting news. And then the third big announcement is that we were awarded funding from the American Recovery Plan, federal money to hire a full-time in-house ASL interpreter. So we're super excited about this because we don't think it's something that, we know it's something the city of Boston has never done, and there aren't a lot of other municipalities that are doing it. So it's going to enable us not only to have ASL at the mayor's press conferences and different meetings, we'll be able to work with people who walk into City Hall and use ASL. They'll be able to communicate instantaneously. And we also hope to have this position create videos to put some of the city's frequent messaging in ASL. So the position will be posted soon. Once it's posted, I will send it all out to everybody, and we hope you will spread it to your networks.
If I
Okay,
could, Commissioner,
sure.
sorry to interrupt, this is Wes. Just to clarify about that in-house interpreter, does that include a CDI, a certified deaf interpreter, as a team of 2 or just 1 interpreter?
No, the interpreter that we're posting for is a hearing interpreter. We are not posting for a CDI, but our guidance from MCDHH is that it's much easier to get a CDI on site or virtually for a meeting. The trouble they have in scheduling is with the hearing interpreter. So we will still be using a CDI when we have press conferences and things like that. This position will just supplement that, and it will make it easier to get the team together for all the press conferences.
Gotcha. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so then moving on to vaccine access. Just to let you know that positivity numbers in the city are continuing to rise, but our hospitals still have more than adequate capacity. So there's really no threat of lack of care at this point. As of 8/10/21, 68% of Boston residents have 1 shot and 61% are fully vaccinated. The mayor is still making a big push to get out into the neighborhoods that have low vaccination rates, and free shots are available at different pop-up clinics. The city's hosting a couple a week, and also doing testing. You can get tested regularly as well. The mayor also announced last week that city employees and those who volunteer in City Hall and city buildings will be required to be vaccinated or else get tested regularly and present a negative test. So that's going to start in September. And then, as you talked about earlier with the letter, we're following closely the information on booster shots. And I know that this group did a ton of advocacy along with the rest of the disability community on the qualifications to get the original shot. So I imagine there'll be a lot of advocacy on the booster shots as well. So stay tuned for more information on that. And I'm going to pause here and see if anyone else has any questions on any of these topics before I move on. No, okay. Next slide. So just a few more things to report on. We are working on some employment initiatives. As you may all know, October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So we have a few things that we're working on for that. But I may have mentioned before that I'm part of a national group of disability commissioners across the country. There are over a dozen of us who meet monthly to talk about emerging issues, common policy things that we want to recommend. And one thing that we did was we wrote a joint letter to Secretary Walsh on employment issues for people with disabilities. We outlined 5 or 6 priorities of what we'd like to ask him to work on. So we were fortunate enough to get a meeting with his staff, hopefully the secretary himself, but definitely his staff. And also another member of the Biden cabinet is Dan Tsai. He was a former director at Mass Health, and now he's working on the federal Medicaid program. So we've also invited him to the meeting to talk about employment disincentives for people who are on Medicaid. So really excited about this meeting, and especially to have the connection with Secretary Walsh. We hope to really push him to increase the opportunities and outcomes of employment for persons with disabilities. We're also working on some other events for October. And in September, we're hosting a lunch and learn on disability inclusion with the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce. That's going to be on September 17th. And we think it's going to be in Cambridge at the Multicultural Arts Center. But once we get everything secured, we will send you out invitations if you'd like to join. And Andrea, that is in person, is that correct? Will it also be virtual, do we know?
The plan right now is in person because it is an informal networking type event is the plan, which is much harder to do on a Zoom call. But everything is, you know, things are only as permanent as the numbers are trending downward. So we certainly have the ability and authority to do it virtually. Yes.
Yeah, and we'll tape it regardless, and then we can pass it on if people are interested. And then just some more information on elections. Olivia did a really great job summarizing the main points, but as everyone may know, that mail-in ballots are available to everybody this year. You don't have to request an absentee ballot for a specific reason. There's no reason required to be given to get a mail-in ballot. You all may also know that the state system of accessible vote by mail ended with the Massachusetts state of emergency. So that allowed people with visual impairments and people with dexterity issues to vote from home electronically. So they had privacy and were able to do it independently. So since the state of emergency ended and there's no more accessible vote by mail, we're meeting internally to see if we can come up with any options to have this at least in the city of Boston. And then just to go over some important dates, to reiterate some of them that Olivia gave, August 25th is the deadline to register to vote in the preliminary election in Boston. September 4th, early voting begins. September 14th is the preliminary election. October 13th is the deadline to register to vote in the general election, and November 2nd is the actual general election. So I would encourage everybody to register to vote, and please get out to the polls. Any questions on any of these topics? Okay, and then my last
It looks like
update-
Elizabeth does. She raised her hand.
Yep. Go ahead,
Yes.
Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Actually, this does go back to your first that I was just trying to get to the raise the hand quickly enough. Going back to the COVID vaccine one, are there ways that I know that this is such a quick moving both information and what happens next once it's available. But given that for the very reasons that they're now recommending it with the general population with the Delta variant, that it all the more so is going to be raises the problems with both the problems of the mass sites, if those return, as well as we don't know yet how they'll handle it, but also the fact that it's literally one shot in one. It's not the complication of two, but you're going to have a mass of people trying to vie for slots in whichever form for one shot. So I just didn't know. In addition to the advocacy you discussed and things like our letter, but what is the best way for people to, follow up with certain specific ways that
Yeah.
to keep.
So, yeah. So the good news is that a lot of the infrastructure is already in place. We had to learn with our feet to the fire last year when all the vaccination clinics were setting up. But we've learned a lot, and we've taken all those lessons learned, and we're facilitating them into a plan for the next phase of booster shots. We're also continuing to monitor the metrics to make sure that the hospital capacity remains adequate. So I believe the announcement that everyone will be able to get a booster shot just came out today. So, the city has been planning for this because we know it's coming, but we will have more information soon. Like I said, it was just announced today that everybody is eligible for a shot in the future, and then people with immunocompromised health conditions will be eligible sooner. Andrea, are they eligible now?
So this is guidance coming from the CDC. So regarding a limited set of immunocompromised folks, they have not only been recommended for a third shot by the CDC, but I believe authorized by the FDA. So the difference here is that the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines were authorized for emergency use by the FDA as basically not harmful in 2 doses. The FDA still needs to do a little more research on a third dose, or review the data, I should say. They don't do research. Review the data of a third dose for non-immunocompromised people. So a particular subset of people essentially on immunosuppressant drugs have already been approved by the FDA and recommended by the CDC. The announcement just came today that the CDC would like to recommend a third dose pending authorization by the FDA, which they expect will happen by approximately the end of September. I know that's complicated. Federal agencies, there's a lot of regulations. We can send the link out to the CDC's announcement that lays this all out. Honestly, maybe not even more clearly than I just did, but we can send it out anyway.
And Elizabeth, as far as more information from the city, we don't have that at this point, but we will certainly keep you in the loop as we hear plans about what the city will be doing.
Oh, sure. And for our networks as well, because as you and Carl and others have discussed, things sometimes like a devoted day for specific with people with a certain type of disability or patient did work out well. And also I would encourage everyone that for the CDC for immunocompromised drugs, when it said, moderate to severely immunocompromised, to just that can be discussed with people's doctors about whether someone feels that they would qualify, but that, so thanks for bringing those to our attention.
Great. Jerry, did you have a question?
Yeah, yes, Commissioner, thank you. I didn't know in the slide here when you have the dates for the voting and so forth, and it says early voting is going to begin. And you mentioned in your verbal report that folks don't need a reason. Are ballots going to be sent out automatically, or do we still have to request those if we want to vote by mail?
I believe you have to request them. Is that right, Andrea?
Yes, but every registered voter should be getting a request form mailed to them.
Right, so you will get something in the mail from the Elections Commission. You just need to fill it out and request a vote by mail ballot.
Sure. Sure. Thank you.
Commissioner.
Yep.
Do you know if the Mass Commission for the Blind or the Mass Office on Disability are going to step in and do some advocacy around accessible voting by mail ending?
I haven't heard that. I know disability advocates, some organizations in Boston have reached out to us about it. I don't know on the state level if that's happening. I wonder if anyone else on the call would know. But we can keep you in the loop if we hear anything. And I will definitely keep you in the loop about Boston.
Yeah. That's just a shame.
Yeah, we were disappointed too. It was definitely the state's call. So, you know, we're working on it. All right, and then last slide for my report is just to let everyone know that the mayor has a series of coffee hours in the neighborhoods throughout the city. Upcoming dates and locations are listed here. I went to one this morning in South Boston. It was a great event. You can meet the mayor. Dunkin' Donuts is sponsoring it, so you get iced coffee. There are some, like I said, the neighborhoods are here if anybody would like to attend. They're usually from 10:30 to 11:30. Okay, and then there's another issue I wanted to discuss in my report, and that is the sidewalk accessibility and the curb ramp settlement agreement that the city recently entered into. I know we had a few questions about it, so I just wanted to give a brief overview. Next slide. So the city recently worked on a curb ramp settlement agreement with some disability advocates. So just to give you some background on sidewalk issues, we all know Boston is an old city. We have narrow sidewalks. They require a lot of maintenance because we have weather-related heaving. That leads to missing bricks. We have aging infrastructure upgrades that need to be completed, and we always have utility work going on because things break, things are old, and things freeze. To complicate these issues, there are numerous entities that own the streets in Boston. So just because it's a street in Boston, it doesn't mean the city of Boston owns it. It could be owned by Mass Dot, or it could be owned by Massport. There are also private streets, so there are a lot of owners of streets in the city. Our current policies and practices over the last 10 years, the city's put in place strict standards for sidewalk and curb ramp construction, and we have explicit accessibility requirements. Public Works has a sidewalk policy. It covers when people do repairs and reconstruction on sidewalks. That would be like private companies or utility companies. And then any new construction falls under the Complete Street Guidelines. This is a national set of standards that prioritizes pedestrians, and they have really explicit sidewalk policies that the city strives to achieve. So a quick overview of the settlement agreement. 4 disability advocates filed a class action suit against the city for non-compliant curb ramps. Rather than going to litigation, the city voluntarily entered into this agreement. A lot of the processes and goals outlined in the settlement have been underway for years, but the reason why it was moved up to the courts was to make sure that it was able to be enforced. And next slide. So this is a breakdown of the things that the city has committed to. We've committed to hire an ADA coordinator to oversee the installation of ADA compliant ramps. We are going to install or upgrade 1,630 curb ramps every year. We're going to install and upgrade curb ramps when building new sidewalks and resurfacing roadways. We'll make our best efforts to investigate curb ramp requests within 30 days. Also making a best effort to install or upgrade those requests within a year. We've also committed to enforcing the city ordinance on snow removal and ensuring timely removal of snow. We're also going to be required to provide an alternate accessible route when curb ramps are temporarily unavailable. The city has prioritized locations for curb ramps. In the next slide. So the prioritized locations are going to be ramps near government facilities, schools, parks, transportation corridors, medical facilities, businesses, places of employment, and residential neighborhoods. And then finally, ways that the public, the disability community, and you can all get involved. The city is going to maintain a system for submitting requests to install or upgrade curb ramps. So if you have an issue with the curb ramp somewhere that you've noticed, you'll be able to input it directly into this system. We're also going to create an implementation plan that the public can comment on and issue annual reports documenting the installation and upgrade of curb ramps. This notice was posted publicly on the City of Boston website. There's a link to it on the slide deck, and it's also been advertised in the Globe and the Herald for 4 consecutive weeks. These were all terms of the agreement. And now, just to follow up with one of the bullet points that we have already completed, I wanted to introduce one of our new colleagues, Tom, who works in the Public Works Department. He is the new ADA coordinator overseeing the ramp installation and compliance. So Tom, do you want to jump on and say a quick hello to the board members?
Sure. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. It's good to meet all of you. As Kristen mentioned, my name is Tom Caparella, and I am the ADA coordinator for the City of Boston. Just a quick background on myself. I am originally from Massachusetts. I spent most of my professional career in Colorado as a civil engineer and project manager. One of my main focuses out there was designing and constructing ADA improvements in the public right-of-way. I moved back to Massachusetts this spring and have been with the city in this new role since May. Some of my responsibilities, and kind of to echo what Kristen said and also add a few, but making sure that all of the requirements of the creek settlement are being followed through on. Inspecting all of the newly constructed ramps in the city to make sure that they're compliant with ADA and MAAB standards. And then at the end of the year, appropriately documenting those and reporting that data. I'll also be helping putting together some of the post-construction variance packages to file with MAAB, and also helping out the city in reviewing incoming project plan sets with a specific focus on ADA improvements. So far, I've been really impressed with the level of consideration and detail that the city engineers are giving to each ramp. It's really encouraging to see, and based on what I've seen so far, I'm really confident that this work is going to greatly improve accessibility within the city. So I'm really looking forward to working with many of you and hopefully meeting some of you in person someday soon. Kristen, thank you for the introduction, and if anyone has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
And just to echo Tom's comments, the city is really committed to this work. I see another colleague of ours on the call, John Vazella. We work closely with him in Public Works, and we brainstorm, we troubleshoot, we work together closely to make the city as accessible as possible. John, you're welcome to give comments if you have any, and if not, we are open for questions.
This is Carl, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So does this settlement agreement also apply to the 4 historic neighborhoods?
It will apply to the whole city, yes.
Okay.
I believe Jerry has a question. Jerry, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes. In Tom's role, is he just focused on the sidewalks, or is he dealing with other ADA related issues as well?
Kristen, would you like me to take that one?
Sure.
Yeah, so specifically, the creek settlement is in regards to ADA curb ramps. But any 311 call that comes in that's ADA related, I'll be directly responsible with the help of John to go in and investigate.
Just to clarify, Jerry, Tom will be working on like the built environment, sidewalks and curb ramps, not like program and policy access, things like that. That's still going to be in our office. But Tom, you know, within in engineering and, you know, that type of background, he'll be doing the work with Public Works.
How about APSs?
That's not part of this project, but we do work closely. That's under BTD, the Transportation Department, but we work very closely with them on pedestrian signals as well. John, do you want to jump in?
I just introduced myself to everybody. Hello, everybody. My name is John Bozzella. I'm the Chief Engineer in Public Works. We are very dedicated to the cause. We have been building and will continue to build a wonderful team that takes this seriously, and we're here to help you in any way we can, answer questions. We'll come out and look at things. Tom is here for anything within the city right away. If it's a sidewalk issue, a roadway issue, a crossing issue, or anything like that, we're here to help and to answer any questions we may. You'll find me in City Hall every day, very, very late like this, and we're available. We're available by email or phone calls or anything that you want. And I just wanted to say hello, introduce myself, and that it's been very nice to be on this meeting. Thank you for making us a part of it.
And Wesley indicated he has a question from the chat, and then Elizabeth raised her hand after that. So Wesley.
Yes, I do. Hi, I do have a question related to the presentation. You mentioned something about snow removal and how that impacts curbs. So do you know how long it's going to take to implement some of this related to, is there a timeline related to dealing with the snow removal and making that happen faster?
I don't have a lot of details on things like that, but I know that right now we're focusing on like the big picture agreement of what we want to accomplish. I would have to get back to you on a timeline. I know the John, is the construction work, when is the 1630 ramps beginning?
We have started this process this year, and it will continue. We of course, we are we're always worried about the weather in the winter and things like that, but we should be working straight up till, we like to say, November 15th, but if the weather is better, we'll continue to get as many built as we can.
Great. And Wesley, we'll get back to you about the snow removal details. And Elizabeth, did you have a question?
Great, thank you.
Elizabeth, you may be on mute if you're trying to speak. Oh, here we go.
Did have it. I had it unmuted, and then it somehow I accidentally remuted it. Part of it was Wesley's question about the snow removal, and I realized the importance of big picture, but I too had questions about, and it does relate to ramps, that sometimes it does seem there are intersections, even on fairly major streets, that go unintended for days, and even with calling 311. So
is that the snow removal you mean specifically?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely circle back with more details about snow removal.
Okay, thank you.
And I do see a question in the chat from John Kelly, wondering if the city's going to use saw cut joints rather than hand formed for smoother riding.
I'll take that one. Hi, John. No, we still have the tool joints in the city right now. The contractors could do a saw cut joint, but in that process, it's very difficult in the city environment to get that. It's usually done in an environment like a development that has fencing around it and less pedestrian access and things like that. But they do make a better surface, and I do agree with you. But right now, we're using hand tool joints.
And any final questions?
Commissioner, this is David Vieira. I have a question or a request. Tom, would you be able to share your contact information with us?
Yes, absolutely. How would you like me to do that, Kristen? Enter it into the chat or?
Yep, you can enter it in. Can you also just say it right now?
Sure. My email is tom.caparella, that's CAPRARELLA @boston.gov. And my phone number is 720-774-0737. And I will also put that into the chat.
And David, if you didn't catch all that, we can email it to you. We have your contact info.
That would be very helpful, Commissioner. Thank you.
Sure. All right, so I can turn it back over to Olivia.
Well,
Great.
Commissioner, I might have had another question that you might want to cover within this segment. How's
Sure.
the bike project going?
We need to revisit that. To be honest, we haven't made a lot of progress on that. We are working internally very closely with the Public Works Department, BTD. Bikes is under BTD. So we're working closely with them. And we just have to get back to doing it. I know that they have put out a series of videos on, what was the list, Andrea?
Specifically related to protected bike lanes, including crossing a protected bike lane, parking next to a protected bike lane. I'm trying to remember what the third topic was, but they're all about specifically the ones that are what they call parking protected. So where it's a parking lane of parked cars, those flex posts, a bike lane, and then the sidewalk. They produced several videos for interacting with that design. I can drop the link.
So we have two ways to approach it. We're working with BTD that they're going to do a video for us on bike safety aimed at bike riders. But then we also have grant money that we need to spend this year. And that was a bigger project I was talking to you about, which we haven't done yet. And really, it's just been an issue of capacity. We had a lot of things happening quickly over the summer, coming back to City Hall after COVID and still trying to reopen. We just had a lot on our plate. And then we are also down one staff member, but we do need to spend the money this year, this calendar year. So we will be working on it now, starting probably next week.
Well, Commissioner, I've been talking about this for 3 years now. And the bullet points that were just mentioned have nothing to do with bikers not paying attention to the standard rules of the road. I was crossing Arlington and Boylston Street last week. All the cars were stopped. I had a walk signal. I was in the middle of a crosswalk, and a bike came shooting out from between the cars and missed me by about 6 inches. There's an enforcement issue here that is not being addressed. And when you talk to the BPD, you need to stress that there needs to be some kind of way to pull these bikers over and give them the lecture about the rules of the road regarding pedestrians. People are riding on sidewalks. They're riding across the crosswalks when people are trying to cross. They're riding down one-way streets the wrong way. I see this every single day that I'm out. I was crossing the public garden the other day, big signs all over the garden saying no bikes. And I observed 6 cyclists riding through the public garden, some of them at pretty good speed. So I just want you to know I'm still in on this, and I'm not going to let it go away.
I know, David, and I do apologize. I know you've been asking about this for a long time, but like I said, we are committed to it too. We just.
Because I'd like to add something.
Sure.
Yeah, I've been just thinking a little bit about that problem, and I visited New York City recently, and I did see a lot of policing out on the streets to make sure that cyclists were actually adhering to the rules and they were going the correct way on the bike paths, and they were allowing space for the pedestrians and being aware of that. So I think that is something that Boston really does need to look into to see how they're doing that or what they're doing. So that's what I would suggest, because it is an issue of public safety. I don't know,
Thank you, Wes and David, for that input. And we certainly can reach out to the police. They all have community police officers in the different neighborhoods, and I could see this being an issue with them as well.
Thank you.
Olivia?
All right, let's move on to Patricia Mendes and the Architectural Access Report.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Great. I'm going to. Oh.
Do you want to share, Patricia, or do you want me to share so that you can?
You go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Patricia Mendes, and I'm the Director of Architectural Access for the Disabilities Commission for the City of Boston. Today, I'm going to give you an architectural access overview. I'm going to talk about 3 different bodies. The first one is the state board, is Massachusetts Architectural Access Board. The second is the City Commission, Public Improvement Commission, PIC, and the third one is the BPDA, Boston Planning and Development Agency. The Massachusetts Architectural Access Board investigates complaints about accessibility. It reviews and decides on variance applications, and it promulgates regulations. Our office has a seat on the AAB, and I am a member, and I'm also the vice chair. The PIC, Public Improvement Commission, that is a city body. It reviews all work being done on Boston's public sidewalks. It oversees sidewalk use, such as outdoor cafe setups. It comments on any specialty designs in the public right-of-way. And our office has a seat on the commission, and Sarah Leon is our designee. The BPDA is the Boston Planning and Development Agency. They review and approve new construction. It requires developers to complete our accessibility checklist, and their work includes transportation, resiliency, and sustainability. The BPDA works also offers lead credit for improving accessibility. And now I'm going to elaborate on these 3 things in the next slide. Thank you. This is a photo of the 9 members. It's a little bit old, and the Architectural Access Board staff and the director. And I also included the Architectural Access Board website for additional information. The Architectural Access Board investigates accessibility complaints from the public. Our office sends access issues
to the AAB compliant officers and share complaint forms. The AAB refers projects that are seeking a variance in Boston to our office for technical assistance, especially older existing buildings that are complicated and are existing and they lack access. The AAB seeks input on variance applications from our office and also from disability advocates. The AAB decides on variance applications at biweekly public meetings. Right now, the meetings are virtual. The AAB publishes accessibility regulations, also called 521 CMR, which are part of the state building code. These are enforced by ISD, the Boston Inspectional Services Department. Our office provides technical assistance to building projects, events, and initiatives that are under the jurisdiction of the AAB, such as outdoor dining, public events, and temporary pedestrian routes during construction. Next slide, please. Next. Thank you. The Public Improvement Commission. The photo shows on the one side, the members on a virtual meeting, and on the other side of the photo, it shows the proposed plan, the new work. I'm including the Public Improvement Commission's website for additional information, including the agendas for the meetings. The PAC owns and manages Boston public and private rights of way, such as sidewalk and streets that are located in the city. PAC has biweekly public hearings that are virtual to review and vote on petitions filed by developers who want to do work on Boston's sidewalks and streets. In 2020, our office was appointed a voting member with a seat on the PAC. Sarah Leon is our designee. Our office gives technical assistance to developers who are proposing to do work on the sidewalk. We give input on specialty designs and materials on pedestrian routes, such as granite pavers, brick, and layouts of sidewalk cafes. Our office prioritizes all pedestrians, especially people with disabilities, in our input to developers before they complete their submission to the PAC. The next slide, please, is not the last one. Boston Planning and Development Agency, showing in the photo, Commissioner McCosh testifying at one of the BPDA hearings a couple of years ago, and also Sarah Leon is in the photo. And this photo was taken a couple of years ago when we were revamping the accessibility checklist. I'm also including here the website for the BPDA, and there's a lot of information there, including the project information. The BPDA reviews new construction through their Article 80 process. As a part of the BPDA application process, developers are required to complete the accessibility checklist that was created by our office. Our office gives input to developers and provide technical assistance on projects in response to the information they give us in meetings and in the accessibility checklist. Our office collaborates with the BPDA in planning and transportation initiatives and guidelines. Our office raises awareness and collaborates on resilience and sustainability initiatives and guidelines. And the last slide, please. And I'm going to talk about all the ways that you can get involved. For the state AAB, Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, you can attend the biweekly AAB meetings virtually to listen and or to comment on variances. You can file AAB complaints about lack of accessibility when necessary. And also you can review AAB variance applications for projects and submit comments individually or as a board. For the PIC, Public Improvement Commission, you can also attend bi-weekly meetings virtually to keep up to date on upcoming sidewalk projects. You can let our office know about your priorities for accessible sidewalks. And you can write letters as a board expressing appreciation or concern about work being done on Boston sidewalks. For the BPDA, Boston Planning and Development Agency, you can attend community meetings virtually on development projects to give input on accessibility issues. You can submit written comments by email on projects individually or as a board. And also you can invite developers to come to our advisory board meeting to present, to discuss accessibility issues. And lastly, you can review their accessibility checklist as part of their submission to the BPDA. And with that, I thank you for your time and attention. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Patricia?
I just have a comment if no one has a question right now. Thank you, Patricia. That was very informative. And we hope to, we want to help you all get up to speed on architectural access issues because we really want your involvement. And we're going to share these slides with you so you can take your time and review them. We know it's a lot of information, but if you are interested in getting involved, at one time we did have a subcommittee on architectural access. And if anyone's interested in reviving that, we're happy to work closely with you to do these things. The chairperson of the board traditionally gets the copies of variance applications. I know that Jerry, I think you were getting them in the mail. Is that right? At one time?
Yes, that's what I mean. You're answering my question. I didn't know whether Olivia's been getting them or the chair, whoever the chair is, would automatically get them. And I know that we had discussed various ways to follow up on them, in the past. So, and that's why, again, that's why you're probably bringing up the issue of the subcommittee or whatnot. So yeah, I used to get them as chair.
Okay. And I think Carl used to get them when he was chair, but Olivia, we can contact MOD and give them your contact info so that you'll get them in the mail. And really the ways that you can all get involved, one of the biggest things that, as you know, you all do is write letters, and they have a big impact on the people who receive them. So continue to do that. And then there are always community meetings about BPDA projects, and there's so much building going on in Boston right now that if there's a project in your neighborhood that you're interested in, I would encourage you to attend the community meetings because you can give comments, you can submit comments. All the documents are available online, including the accessibility checklist. And we implemented the checklist about 5 years ago. It's extremely detailed. It talks about accessible routes surrounding the project, accessible T stations in near the project. It talks about if it's housing, how many units are going to be built out as group 2 fully compliant units. It talks about vertical connections, if there's an elevator or there's stairs right next to it. It talks about parking. It's very, very detailed, but it's also like a snapshot of the accessibility of the whole project. So if anyone's interested in those, we're happy to share them. Every project has to do one, and they're really helpful because it makes the developers think about accessibility at the beginning of the project, not just at the end to just throw it in as an afterthought. So I am just throwing that out there to see if anyone wants to make a vote to revive the subcommittee on architectural access. If not tonight, at some point in the future, we would be willing to work with you. Our staff would be happy to support that. Thank you.
And that's also something that if you all want to take the slides and read it and vote at any other meeting, we're happy to support that at any time. But just to clarify the commissioner, it wasn't she wasn't challenging you to do it right now.
Okay. Okay. Just making sure. So I'm like, all right. Announcements.
Olivia, I have another comment. It's a point of information, please.
Sure, David, go ahead.
This is David Vieira from Hyde Park. The open meeting law requires that public meetings have a roll call vote of their members. And I know your introductions cover that roll call, but it's important that the advisory committee members use both their first and last name for that roll call, please. And also when one of the advisory committee members is speaking, a first and last name would also be helpful. And last point, on your letter to Acting Mayor Janey, the original letter that was referenced was dated in April. This is August. It seems a little disingenuous to be sending a welcome letter to somebody who's been in office for 6 months. So I would suggest that the commission prioritize these time-sensitive messages a little bit faster than 6 months. That's all.
Okay, Patricia's got an announcement.
Yes, hi everyone again. My announcement is regarding potential CAM training. CAM stands for Community Accessibility Monitor training. This is given by MOD, and I'm happy to organize it for our advisory board members. I want to take it myself personally, and I would like to know if there's enough interest. I'm happy to hear if you can let us know. I'm happy to organize this this training, which is like 2 parts. The first part is about 4 hours. The second part is a little bit less than 4 hours, and it would be at no cost, and it would be virtual. So I'm really excited to help provide this training, and I hope you guys are interested, and please let me know if that is so. The name is Community Accessibility Monitor, CAM training.
This is Carl. I took part in training many, many years ago, and it is worthwhile doing. So I would suggest to other advisory members that if they want to learn more about Architectural Act, that it is well worthwhile doing.
I'm definitely interested, Patricia. This is Olivia.
Great. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any announcements?
Not an announcement, just want to highlight that Ducia put in the chat that she is interested as well, because I know she's having some audio challenges speaking, and it looks like Jerry as well wanted to note his interest. So we've got a handful of you to be in touch with.
This is Jerry. I just wanted to speak. You know, while
sorry, my apologies.
That's okay. While I am interested in the CAM training, I don't know whether I have the time commitment to devote to it. So, but when you're ready to recognize it, I just had a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
Thank you. Again, this is Jerry Boyd. Thank you, David, for that reminder about announcing ourselves. I'm sure it's, you know, it's necessary for the interpreters and the accessibility of the meeting to do that. But my announcement was just a thank you to the commissioner and her staff. I saw in the weekly announcement that came out that I received today that they recently completed 6-week financial literacy program with special education students from the city of Boston, and I you know, that to me sounds like a wonderful program, and I would love to hear, you know, more about it. If not at next month's meeting, maybe at a future meeting. I think it was wonderful. I clicked on the link of a news story that was on Channel 5 WCBB. So I'm glad that it got some good publicity as well. So.
Hi, Jerry. It's Kristen McCosh. Thank you for that. I did mean to put that in my commissioner report. I forgot to do it, but yeah, we can give a report out on that probably next month. It was funding that we got from Citibank. 5 cities across the country got it. It's part of our national group that we were involved with. New York, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, and Boston all got money to work on financial empowerment for people with disabilities. So we had a 6-week session with Boston special ed students of transition age. So they are 18 to 22, working on their next steps after high school. The training made them aware of different bank products like savings account, checkings account, different types of like credit practices, predatory lending. So it was just training on financial literacy, and it ended with them each student being given seed money of $100 to open an account. So super great program. Many thanks to Andrea. She did a lot of the coordinating on it. It was a great program, and we still have funding left from the grant, so we hope to continue it in the fall.
That's great. That's great. And if we know somebody that might benefit from the program, should we let your office know, Commissioner? This is Jerry Boyd again.
Hi, it's Kristen McCosh. Yes, you just let me know, Jerry.
All right, thank you.
Any other announcements? Okay, let's move on to old business. We've taken care of the letters.
Wes has his hand up. I've got something.
Oh, sorry, Wes, go ahead.
No, sorry about that. This is Wes. I do have a bit of old business, but I'm not sure if you have something, if you want to go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, this was an action item about the survey for the mayoral candidates. So do we have an update on that? I'm not sure if you have an update, but if you do, could you let us know what the update is?
I think we talked a few meetings ago that it wasn't, I looked into it with my cabinet chief, and it wasn't something that I could actively participate in just because of the really strict line between like office work for the city and the election. So it was going to be something that you could work on with BCIL. I believe that's where we left it. Is that right, Andrea?
Yes, this is Andrea Patton. Just adding that I think the executive committee, someone was reaching out to BCIL, not to put you all on the spot here, but yeah. I think that's where it got left. So I'll leave it to Olivia to update.
Yes, it got dropped. I admit it. We'll get back on it. Tomorrow morning is a new day. We'll get to it. I'll call BCIL myself tomorrow morning. Any other old business? No, hearing none. Is there any new business?
Do I get to make my motion?
No, I haven't put in public. So hearing no new business, public input. Any members of the public want to step forward and say something?
Hi, this is John Kelly. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
I would just say that I was very disappointed in Chief Engineer Vozella's response about saw cut sidewalks and hand formed sidewalks. You can do a saw cut sidewalk without fencing, and they've done that both. The parks did it in the little park near me, and it was done on the sidewalk along the Fenway. And if people don't know what it is the usual sidewalks have those big cracks, the cracks that break your mother's back. And you can know how bad a sidewalk is by the loud sound that the skateboards make when they go over it. Thunka, thunka, thunka. And it's very painful for some wheelchair users, especially people who deal with pain, to go over those hand-formed sidewalks, which can have gaps as wide as an inch. And the previous chief engineer was working with the disability community on it. It's a little more expensive, but it makes all the difference in the world. And whenever I see a sidewalk with the big gaps, with the hand formed cracks, I have to go in the street, just like the skateboards. And it's dangerous every time I go out and I have to go in the street. I imagine a car killing me by running me over. It's very traumatic. And I just hope that issue. Thank
Hi,
you.
thank you, John. This is Kristen McCosh. Just to respond to that, when we work with developers doing private development who are doing work on the sidewalk, we always recommend saw cut joints. And many of them do put them in. It's not currently a city standard, but I can bring this up again. We meet monthly with John and his team. So John Vazella and his team. And now that Tom is on board, we can certainly, I can raise that discussion to them.
Yes, I really appreciate all the saw cut joints put in by the developers. It's like a dream to go down the sidewalk. It's almost like being on tile in a building, and it's very beneficial for ambulatory people who don't trip as much. And so I appreciate all the places that has appeared, but I think that it really should be the mandated standard. Otherwise, people have to use the streets or stay home. Thank you.
Any other public input? We're 1 minute over, so let's make a motion to adjourn. Go ahead.
Carl, all right, how did you know it was gonna be me? This is Carl Richardson. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I second. This is Jerry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, I'll see you all next month.
Thank you.
Bye,
Stay
thanks.
safe, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.